Boko Haram militants kill 9, abduct 10 in Borno State. House Speaker Gbajabiamila identifies those he believes are sabotaging the country's power sector. On the international scene, Turkish president vows to continue oil and gas trade with Iran against U.S. sanctions. And in sport, FIFA reviews votes for Salah were voided because of capital letters.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Boko Haram terrorists have struck again in Borno State, where they have killed 7 persons and abducted 10 along the Damaturu Road on Thursday. A golf car had run into an improvised explosive device that the suspected terrorists had planted on the road. The golf car was carrying 7 passengers. The terrorists were also said to have attacked the town of Mafa, killing 2 persons and burning down a market. Oyo State authorities are trying to figure out who the hoodlums were that attacked and destroyed millions of naira worth of properties in several public primary and secondary schools in the state. The state had terminated the services of security guards at the schools when Governor Seyi Makinde abolished all forms of payments in public primary and secondary schools. The hoodlums looted property at the newly constructed Oluyole Primary School in Ibadan. They also attacked at least 2 schools in Akinyele local government and Ido. Property worth millions of naira were also vandalized at the OLGC Primary School in Ayegun area of Oluyole local government. Before Governor Makinde assumed office in May, there had been a compulsory levy of 1,000 naira per term for students in public schools in the state. Oyo State Universal Basic Education Board Executive Chairman Dr. Nureni Adeniran says the present administration will treat the perpetrators as saboteurs who maliciously damaged government properties. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, says unpatriotic activities of some serving and retired public office holders are responsible for the power sector failure in Nigeria. The Speaker's representative, Chief Whip Mohammed Monguno, was addressing attendees at the opening of the investigative hearing into the federal government's abandoned power projects from 1999 to date. He expressed displeasure with the state of power in Nigeria. Monguno said an ad hoc committee had received a motion on Thursday on the need to review government expenditure on the power sector to ensure sustenance of the power reform program in the country. He said it is time we set our hearts correcting all that is wrong so that we can create an enabling environment for our children. The federal government says it closed to Nigeria's borders to strengthen the nation's security and protect its economic interests. Controller General of Nigeria Customs Service, retired Colon Hamid Ali, gave the explanation on Thursday at a border stakeholders meeting in Seme that included freight forwarders and security agencies. Ali said there was no intention to hurt anyone by the border closure. The only desire was to protect the nation's interest. Ali said many things had gone wrong regarding compliance with transit of goods. He said the border closure was to help straighten out things so all stakeholders would return to doing the right things. Meanwhile, as he was given a speech at the Seme border, a summons was issued for the Nigeria Customs Service boss to appear before the Senate Committee on Customs, Excise and Tariffs to explain the decline in revenue collection by the service. Committee Chairman Senator Francis Alimi Keme says part of the committee's mandate was to expose shady practices within the Customs Service and to block leakages in the customs revenue collection process. The committee questions the Customs Service third position as a revenue collector in the nation. They trail the federal government, the Federal Inland Revenue Service and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation in revenue collection, even though they are the only agency that collects excise duties. Senator Alimi Kene says this trend is worrisome. There was a dragged-out face-off in 2017 between the Senate and Customs boss Ali when he refused to wear customs uniform when he appeared before the committee. President Buhari appointed Ali as Customs Controller General during his first term. South Africa President Cyril Ramaphosa says no Nigerian national was killed in the latest xenophobic attacks in the country. He was speaking with Nigeria's former President Olusegun Obasanjo in South Africa during a meeting that included discussions of the xenophobic attacks and other issues affecting the two nations. The Nigerian former president, who was in South Africa to launch a book he co-authored, met Ramaphosa and discussed the xenophobic attacks and other issues affecting the two countries. Ramaphosa's spokesperson, Kusela Diko, said in a statement on Thursday, the two leaders discussed misconceptions created about the South African situation, which they believed gave the impression that Nigerian nationals in particular had been victimized.
Coming up, African stories. Nearly 2,000 protesters against Egypt's president have been arrested. And later, international news. Turkey defies the U.S., decides to continue oil trade with Iran.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. A human rights group in Egypt says nearly 2,000 persons have been detained since protests against President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi began in Cairo and other Egyptian cities for a week now. Head of the Arab Network for Human Rights Information, Gamar Eid, says the arrest had been made between Friday and Wednesday and describes them as part of the most violent campaigns in Egypt's modern history. The protest came after a 45-year-old former actor, military contractor and businessman Mohammed Ali, who lives in self-imposed exile in Spain, posted videos accusing al-Sisi of corruption. President al-Sisi has denied the allegations. The president's opponents have called for further mass protests across the country today, Friday. Supporters of the government are also planning mass rallies to stand behind Sisi. Security forces are reported to have stepped up their presence in main squares in major cities and have been checking mobile phones for political content. Suspension of all flights between Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, and the southern city of Kismayo have led to shortages of medical supplies that could endanger lives. Kismayo Hospital Director Hussein Sheikh Osman says the city's general hospital is facing lack of medicine. It also cannot refer any patients to Mogadishu or other cities in East Africa. It says medication and other hospital facilities have been exhausted and are scarce. Flights were blocked by the federal government since Monday because of tensions with the regional administration in Kismayo. Current tensions between the federal government and the governments of the Jubaland region came after a former militant, Ahmed Mohamed Madobe, won a disputed local election in August. The federal government has cancelled the votes. The World Health Organization has announced earlier this week the Democratic Republic of the Congo is set to introduce a second vaccine next month to combat the Ebola virus, which has killed more than 2,000 persons in the country. The announcement came as the aid group Doctors Without Borders accused the WHO of rationing the first Ebola vaccine in the DRC. Chris Okamringa has the story.
A second Ebola vaccine will be introduced in the DRC in mid-October. The vaccine, manufactured by US firm Johnson & Johnson, will be introduced in areas where the disease is not being actively transmitted. The current Merck vaccine being used proved effective in preventing the spread of the disease, but health experts recommended the introduction of another one.
The current vaccine we are using on the ground, it is the RVSV. It is a Merck vaccine. It is for the ring vaccination. It's not for a large population. So Johnson & Johnson, one of the advantages is we can use it for a large vaccination, and also it is for the prevention. It is preventive vaccine.
The new experimental vaccine is administered in 2 shots, about 2 months apart. Plans to introduce the vaccine sparked controversy mid this year. The former DRC Health Minister, Oli Ilunga, argued that it would cause confusion among the communities. But some doctors have welcomed the introduction of the vaccine.
I am among many people from Eastern Congo who are happy about the plan to introduce the second vaccine.
The announcement of the second Ebola vaccine comes as medical charity Doctors Without Borders accused the World Health Organization of rationing the first Ebola vaccine in the DRC. The World Health Organization has denied its rationing the vaccine and said it's working hard to end the outbreak in the DRC. The WHO and the DRC Health Ministry say more than 200,000 people have been vaccinated with the Merck vaccine since August last year. But the deadly virus has killed more than 2,000 people, making it the second deadliest outbreak after that seen in West Africa between 2014 and 2016.
In East Africa, more than 40,000 jobs have been created in Uganda over the past year as a result of Chinese direct investment. A report by the Ugandan Investment Authority says China accounted for more than 45% of foreign investments made between 2018 and 2019. That makes it the top source for foreign investment. Reporter Michael Baleke has the details.
The Uganda Investment Authority says China has registered investments worth more than $600 million over the past year. The investments are largely in agriculture and construction sectors such as roads, bridges, power dams and industrial parks. The investment body puts the number of Chinese companies involved in key infrastructure projects at over 200.
The numbers for the Chinese investments are growing and they are showing an upward trend.
The new investment report for financial year 2018-2019 shows the manufacturing sector as another key area of interest for Chinese investors.
Because of government policy of value addition, most of them who come up for various investments, they are looking at adding value to either local raw materials, or even when they import their raw materials, they still add value in this country.
The investment report also shows that India, Egypt, Mauritius, Pakistan and Turkey have also increased their share of investments in the country. There is no doubt that more investors are opening up shop, not just in Uganda, but the rest of Africa. However, the worry now is the high levels of poverty, which are negatively affecting the purchasing power of the local populations on the continent. The situation has been escalated by the insecurity, especially along the borderlines of some African markets like South Sudan and DR Congo. Since February, Rwanda has maintained a closed border with Uganda over political differences.
Those who had some loans that they had invested in the business are now facing it rough. The banks cannot understand what is happening. For them, they are after recovering their own money. And you recall that this was a source of livelihood where children used to get their school fees, where women used to have the meals at home because they would engage during the course of the day and have what to take home. So all this has been now put to hold.
However, investment experts argue that even with the unpredictable environment in some states, there seems to be a growing appetite to invest more in the wider African region. This is expected to improve the region's economic performance and the welfare of its people.
When we return, international news. Turkey defies the US, decides to continue oil trade with Iran, and later, sport. FIFA reviews votes for Salah were voided because of capital letters.
You are watching ANN.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow this story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit. Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to the international scene. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan says it is impossible for Turkey to stop buying oil and natural gas from Iran, despite the threat of U.S. sanctions. Erdogan also emphasized that trade between the two countries would continue. Erdogan further said Turkey was not afraid of possible U.S. sanctions over its trade with Iran, adding that Ankara did not want to sever its cooperation with Tehran. Saudi Arabia is working toward opening its doors to international tourists for the first time as part of a broader push to cut its economic dependence on oil. The conservative Muslim kingdom is also launching a visa regime for 49 countries and relaxing strict dress codes for female visitors who were previously required to wear black robes or abayas that cover their whole body. Tourism Minister Ahmad Al-Khatib says this is a historical moment for the country. Visas have largely been restricted to pilgrims, business people, and expatriate workers until now. Saudi Arabia is also hoping to secure foreign investments in the tourism industry. It wants tourism to rise from 3 to 10% of gross domestic product by 2030. Although dress code is being relaxed for foreign women visitors, they will still be required to dress modestly. There will also be no restrictions on unaccompanied women visiting the country. Visas will be available online for about $80. The Muslim holy cities of Mecca and Medina will remain off limits to non-Muslim visitors. The Trump administration says it will allow only 18,000 refugees to resettle in the United States in the 2020 fiscal year. This has been tagged as the lowest number in the history of the modern American refugee program. In a major policy shift for a federally directed program, President Donald Trump has also issued an executive order that his administration would seek the approval of state and local governments before resettling refugees in their communities. The State Department said the cut was necessary to clear a backlog of claims mostly filled by refugees from Central America crossing into the U.S. from Mexico. A senior administration official told reporters the 2019 number includes specific carve-outs for U.S. national security and foreign policy interests. Of the proposed 18,000 spots, 4,000 would be reserved for Iraqis, 5,000 for those fleeing religious persecution, and 1,500 for those from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. The remaining 7,500 spots will be available for everybody else. The People's Republic of China will mark its 70th anniversary on Tuesday with celebrations on a scale never before seen in China in decades. Beijing is pulling out all the stops and October the 1st to be flush with fireworks, fanfare, and a huge military parade which is already underway.
It's expected to be the grandest parade in the history of the People's Republic of China. The military parade scheduled for October the 1st will involve over 15,000 military personnel who will be divided into 59 formations, aligned in foot, armament, and flight formations.
The parade is the first National Day parade since the CPC Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at the core, leading the whole party, the entire army and all ethnic groups into a new era. It's the first time for the armed forces of the People's Republic to appear after they have been reshaped.
Some new formations will make their debut in the parade, including those of commanders, military academies, and peacekeeping regiments. The armament displayed during the parade will showcase the very latest military strength of the PLA.
All the armaments ready for review are the domestically made battle equipment, much of which is in service, including some new types of PLA armament. It will showcase the combat system of our joint operation.
3 rehearsals have been held, and the quality is guaranteed for each of them.
Everything is ready, and we expect the arrival of that solemn and exciting moment.
Senior PLA officials say through the parade, the Chinese military will be further determined to safeguard national interests and contribute to world and region's peace and stability.
Still ahead, sports. FIFA reviews votes for Salah were voided because of capital letters. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, Niger's home-based senior players have arrived in the Senegalese capital of Dakar for the second Waffle Fox Cup of Nations, starting on Saturday. Niger's silver medalist at the inaugural edition staged in Cape Coast, Ghana 2 years ago, will play against Togo in the first match of the competition on Sunday. FIFA says 2 votes for Mohamed Salah in the Best FIFA Men's Player Award were not counted because signatures were in capital letters. The Egyptian Football Association says acting Egypt's coach Shaki Garib and captain Ahmed El Mohammadi voted for Liverpool forward Salah. The firms also lacked a mandatory signature by the EFA General Secretary. Barcelona's Lionel Messi won the award on Monday ahead of Juventus forward Cristiano Ronaldo and Liverpool defender Virgil van Dijk. Salah finished 4th in the voting, although the invalid votes would not have affected the standings. Football's world governing body FIFA says voting was supervised and monitored by independent observer PricewaterhouseCoopers Switzerland. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a great weekend.